Nvidia made a significant resurgence. We witnessed a significant amount of sustained strength flexing from companies like Apple, which is currently, in my opinion, decisively leading the market capitalization race. Then, despite today being an exception, we've seen small caps suffer more than some may have hoped. They both represent various investor perspectives and are significant and influential in this market. You still, in my opinion, aspire to own the greatest businesses in the most significant categories. That's Nvidia and that's Apple, for crying out loud, and they will work really hard throughout any cycle. However, the cost of money, mortgage rates, and vehicle loan rates all rise to zero when the market starts to think that the Fed would eventually return interest rates to neutral. This creates enormous tailwinds for cyclical equities, especially small caps. That's why, in my opinion, I would still want to place a very well-informed wager with a high likelihood that small caps will perform admirably throughout the course of the upcoming year, and possibly even before it ends. It's been a while since our last conversation regarding your granny shots. Tell us again your thesis for some of these stocks that you find appealing. Indeed, the foundation of granny shots is the notion that there are recurring patterns, such as the multi-secular drivers of an economy. Our initial granny shot model examined energy security, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and the millennial generation. The granny shots really started out as a result of our desire to hold the greatest stocks in those categories. Brands like Nvidia and Apple are mentioned. In fact, Nvidia has been included since 2019. Therefore, I believe it's crucial for investors to actually identify the finest firms and hold them for the duration of the cycle rather than trading the top names. All right, Tom Lee, good reminder. I appreciate you being here with me. I'm grateful. After releasing its results in mid-August, Nvidia experienced some difficulties, but this week the company's stock is up almost 15%. Joseph Moore, senior semiconductor analyst at Morgan Stanley, will be joining us shortly to discuss the firm and the industry in more detail. Joseph, may I just ask you what occurred this week? What is driving the stock's momentum in either direction? Yes, I believe that the events of the previous 2 weeks were the bigger surprise for me. The quarter was excellent. They exceeded expectations by $2 billion, something that has never been done before. Nvidia began doing it a year and a half ago. Though I understand that they're dealing with challenges related to expectations and some concerns over gross margin, I was somewhat aback by the sell-off. This is our top choice because there is a huge demand for it. It's critical right now to concentrate on this kind of product cycle and related topics. We hope the business follows through on it. However, the business's strength is perhaps the most important factor, as Jensen told us at a conference this week. We've heard this from a number of important customer-side executives on their level of dedication to certain workloads. Thus, in my opinion, this is still a really interesting tale. Once more, I'm not precisely sure why it was up this week or why it was down so much last week, but I thought the company was fairly valued and had excellent future growth possibilities. Will Blackwell's profit margins be smaller than Hopper's? Maybe a little amount, I believe. It's a little unusual that at one point, around the product's March debut, they had sort of mentioned various price points on CNC. Their main concern, in my opinion, is can we continue to deliver value? Can we keep expanding the market? They're presumably more concerned with that than the finer points of gross margin, in my opinion. In the upcoming quarters, there will be some pressure here, but this is really the beginning of cranking it up. At first, the yields will be low. They're broadening the range of products, but I believe they've sort of stated that the gross margins will be comparable over the course of the entire life cycle. Grace will be paired with a microprocessor, and these racks will be sold with an ND-Link switch. A large number of the products they sell may have slightly lower gross margins. Therefore, next year's gross margins will be roughly 1% lower. In light of the strong operating margins and significant operating leverage, I don't think it's a huge concern. However, I believe that the response to the query is really affirmative, albeit somewhat less. However, that doesn't alter the fact that the gross margins remain exceptionally high. The remarks made by Jensen Huang during an exclusive interview with Goldman Sachs conducted outside the White House are the reason for this return to AI. Naturally, Larry Ellison discussed everything that transpired on that Oracle conference call, including the revelations regarding the Oracle figures with you and me. Microsoft also discussed AI and all of its opportunities when they spoke at Communicopia and Goldman Sachs. Thus, are you more of a believer, you know? Have you ever been dubious? Well, no, I've never doubted AI's ability to completely change the world. What worries me, and still worries me, is what it will imply for society as a whole. I have faith in what will happen there in the end. There are still differing opinions. One is primarily held by the Sequoia camp, which we all began discussing with their initial report earlier this summer. It raises concerns about the return on invested capital from all of these AI investments, whether or not they will eventually find their way into apps, and how this will all work out from a value proposition. But regardless of whether this will completely change everything, I don't doubt it. You're not good, Jim, and I haven't been either. Yes, talking to Jensen is humorous. This has been like alcohol for 18 months, and it's supposed to cure cancer, he says. I mean, I wonder to myself, is it a cancer cure? You take a moment to clarify that's not the purpose of the pause. It has to do with instantaneously obtaining data that would need years to compile. I appreciate that recent examples have demonstrated that clinicians are still, without a doubt, more adept than I at detecting breast cancer cases. This helps to allay concerns. But to be clear, this is the current scenario. He made it clear to me that he had no concerns about Nvidia's performance. He asks about the amount and nature of the spending. Ellison, a spokesperson for Oracle, now states that you will need to invest an infinite amount of money to keep up with AI networks. The spending never stops. It resembles what they created. This kind of concept that Sequoia at least embraces is one of the important ones. One day it will all be finished, and you won't need to spend as much money on GPUs. Every piece of data will be gathered. You will go to the next stage once the generative models and large language models are mostly finished, though not quite. However, value won't always be produced by the people using the models, is that correct? However, I believe that one of the things, let's take a look at what Tesla is talking about, is robotics and the development of truly autonomous vehicles. Discuss self-driving automobiles and some of its potential uses. It's similar, I suppose, to the time you took chemistry, which I was able to drop since I knew it would damage my transcript. What I did was see that this was an issue of attempting to perform applied versus basic work. Alon was doing applied work, and Jensen was handling the basics, which is significant. Additionally, via chips, which takes us to Jensen Huang's speech yesterday at the White House regarding AI and its statewide rollout. To what extent will there be a public-private collaboration with the government? Check out Megan Cassella's interview with him if you missed it. We must ensure that everyone is aware of the upcoming needs, opportunities, and challenges, and that we are addressing them in the most effective and scalable way possible. Without a doubt, do you believe that the federal government should be involved in this situation, making both private and public investments? Given the extremely rapid rate of growth in this field, public-private cooperation is most likely going to be necessary. Even though artificial intelligence requires a lot of energy to train, it also uses less energy once it is used because the main goal is to use the model rather than train it. Covered a wide area. Yes, that is incredibly fascinating. I mean, that's simply incredibly crucial when exercising with. Though they are less trained and more inferential, I believe in the universe of Lisa and AMD. What counts is that when you purchase an NVIDIA processor, you essentially have access to this enormous library of resources. 7 chips on a black. We have to grasp this concept well. It's a supercomputer weighing 80 pounds. People just say, oh, it's put them all together, and you get. And that's what you get, so we need to stop calling it chips. Well, Ellison spoke, is